This is Dan Abbott. I'm making this video to show you how you might approach this. It's called a tensioner bracket or a tensioner frame, something that requires a loft in this case. So there's the completed SolidWorks model over here. This is what the original drawing looks like. If I drag my feature tree all the way back, you can see that what I started with here originally was that lower boss. Then I added the upper boss. And I threw in some planes, and if we take a look at what those planes look like this. So I have planes that are not the primary planes. The primary planes are someplace else. There's the right plane right here. And what I did was created planes that I could draw a sketch on, and the sketch is the elliptical shape that represents that rail that connects these two. So that's where the loft is right there. Then I mirrored the bodies. Then I created another boss in the middle of that I-beam shape that comes right here, and extruded it up to surface, put the cut that went all the way through the bottom, put a cut in the top, put a cut in the other side, then added as a single fillet all the fillets that went right around here, which actually it says 1.5, but I made all of them 3. So the way to approach this from the beginning. First, what I'd like to do is to create a plane that I can use to draw that one side piece on. So in the Features tab, I'm going to go over to, let's stretch this out, Reference Geometry. And under Reference Geometry, I'm going to select Reference Plane. My first reference is going to be the right side view, the right plane. And what I want to do is to take a plane that is half of the distance between those two faces, 35 millimeters over. So I'm just going to pick right plane, and down in the distance I'm going to type 35. So I'm creating a plane that I can draw that surface on right here. Now that the plane exists, I can go ahead and sketch on it. I go to my sketch tool, pick sketch, turns it around because that's the plane that I want. I'm going to start by putting a center line. The center line start at the center, then go up some distance. Now the distance between the centers is 140, so I'm going to put a dimension of 140 on that center line. And just because I like the plane to look a little more like what it should look like, I'm going to stretch it out so it looks like that. Now I'm going to draw a circle here at the end of the center line up there, and I'm going to draw another circle down here at the end of this center line. I'll put a dimension on this, and that dimension will be 48. I'll put a dimension on the bottom one. That dimension is going to be 32. And that's all I need for right now. I'm going to go over here and extrude just the lower one. So what I want to do is come down where it says Selected Contours, and instead of selecting the whole thing, I'm just going to pick just that circle right there. And I'll extrude that, its thickness, which is 19. Put that right here. Come back out. I've got that one boss. Now I'm going to go back and do another extrude. This time, instead of picking a plane and sketching, I'm going to go and pick the sketch that I just created. I'm going to open up the feature tree, open up that first boss, pick that sketch plane, go down to Selected Contours. Once again, in the Selected Contours, I'm going to pick just that contour. This one comes out 25. I'll come out that distance right here. And now I've got the top boss and the bottom boss, and I just need to connect them. I'm going to look at this from the bottom. Looking at it from the bottom, it gives me a place that I can sketch the ellipse that I need for the bottom loft. I'm going to actually create 2 ellipses here. So now I'm going to go and sketch, this time on the top plane. Top plane is the one right down through here. So if I look at the top plane, you can see that it's right where that lower boss is. And the reason I'm looking at it from the bottom is just so that I can see it. I'm going to go ahead and draw a center line. I'm going to draw the center line so it starts at that edge right there and just goes straight down vertically until it connects this edge right here. There we go, vertically. So now that's a vertical line, and it touches the top and touches the bottom. Now it's free to go side to side. If I look over here, I see that the surface of that lofted piece is 3 millimeters from the face. The center of the lofted piece is half of 12, which is 6. I'm going to put a dimension from this outside edge of this boss to that center line of 9 millimeters, because that's where I want my ellipse to go. Now I'll go to the ellipse command. I want the ellipse to touch on the bottom. The ellipse has a center, so I'm going to go to the center of my center line, snap up here, then just draw the ellipse like so. Now that constrains the ellipse up and down, so if I put a dimension on the ellipse of 12, that should fully define it, and it does. I'm actually done with that. I'm just going to press enter. And now I'm going to go and look at this from the top. And I'm looking at it from the top so that I can look down through this part. And now I need to add another sketch. Although I do need a plane to sketch on. I don't need one, but it's easier to do on a sketch. So I'm going to go to Features. I'm going to go back over here to Reference Geometry. I'm going to create another plane. This time my reference plane will be the top plane, the one down where that goes through that lower boss. And the distance between them is going to be 140. So now that plane goes directly through the center of that. Although I could also have said my second reference is going to be the center of that plane. I'm going to go with 140 because I need to turn the sketch back on. I can turn the sketch back on. Let's go ahead and turn that sketch on. I go right up here, I'm going to say let's show that sketch. So now I can see that sketch. Now we'll go back over. I'll say I want to have a reference geometry plane. I'm going to base it on the top plane, and then my second point is going to say to go through the center. That way I don't have to type in the 140, and if that distance changes, it'll automatically change the location of that plane. It's a better way to do that. It maintains the overall intent of the design. So now I'll look down at this from the top, and I need to draw another sketch. That sketch is going to be on the plane that I just created. The plane I just created is right there. I'll draw a center line again. This center line is going to start up here. It's going to go all the way down to here. It's going to be vertical. But what I want is for that center line to be lined right up with the one below it. So I'll pick the sketch below it. I'll hold the control key down and I'll pick the center line I just drew. I'll select collinear so that they line right up. Now I have something that I can use to draw my ellipse. I'll draw the ellipse from the midpoint of that center line up to here, and I'm going to snap right to that location. Now it didn't actually snap yet, so I'm going to drop it back on there. Now that's fully defined, and it's defined by the geometry itself. Come back out again. So what I have here is two ellipses, the one on the bottom and the one on the top. Just to make it a little easier to see what I'm doing, I'm going to go back to that original sketch and hide it. I'm going to take that plane right there and hide it. I'm going to take that little plane that I created for the top ellipse and hide that. So now I'm just looking at my two elliptical sketches, which are listed over here as Sketch 2 and Sketch 3. So now I'm going to go to Features. Notice I'm not in a sketch anymore. Those two sketches are independent of each other except that they've been snapped together, but they're in two separate sketches. Now I'm going to do a lofted boss and base. I'm going to pick the bottom ellipse, and I'm going to pick the top ellipse in more or less the same position so that it does that. If you're not careful, you can have that come up and twist. So now that loft is put in place, and I've got the one arm on that side that I need. Holes are pretty easy, so instead of going through that process, what I'm going to do now is just to mirror this on the other side. Now mirroring that is a feature function, so we're going to go over to the mirror function, which is right there. And the face I'm going to mirror around, or the plane I'm going to mirror around, is the right plane, because that's down the center of the part. And it's down the center of the part because I offset my original plane 35 over. Now, as far as features to mirror go, I can't pick these individual features because they would be an unconnected part. So what I need to do is go open up Bodies to Mirror, and I'm going to pick this whole body to mirror it over. But it's still not going to work. If I pick the green check, it says you can't merge the newly generated body with the workpiece. The problem is, since they don't touch, there's no way you can merge them together. If I go over and clear Merge Solids right there, try it once again, now I've got the two pieces. Now what I'm going to do is go over and take a look at it from the right. And what I want to do right now is to do another sketch. This sketch is going to be on the right plane. And what I'm going to do is to sketch that I-beam shape that goes between them. That's this shape right over here. And I'm doing it on the plane that's halfway between them, but from the right hand side, just that I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go up. This is actually kind of helpful here if I start by putting in a center line. I'm going to start my center line on that center right there, and I'll go all the way down to here just to have some place to put it. So snap to that point, snap to this point. Now I've got something that I know is always going to be centered between those two center lines. So now a couple ways I could do this. I could draw a circle. Let's do a slot. I'm going to draw the slot on here, and it's going to be the center tool slot. So if I pick a point here and make that vertical, then come down like that. Now what I can do is put a dimension on it, and the dimension of the width of this should be 4. So I'll make that 4. And now what I want to do is I want to connect that edge right there with this silhouetted edge over here. So to do that, I'm going to hold down my control key. I'm going to select that arc. Then I'm going to move over, and I can't just grab the loft. I'm going to move that until I see that symbol that shows a yellow box with an edge, and that's called a silhouette edge. Now when I pick that, I've got a silhouetted edge, which is really not an actual edge, it's just the silhouette looking past it at an arc, and I can say, let's make those tangent. I'm not going to bother to do the other side, because what I'm really using this for is just to create the shape, and then I'm going to trim it up. Now I'll do another slot, do that down here, make sure that it's vertical, put another dimension on this side. I'm going to do everything on the left side and then mirror it over. So that's going to be 4 as well. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say, hold the control key down, select that edge, come over here until I get that little silhouette box, add a tangency relationship there. Now that's always going to be tangent to that edge, so even if it moves up and down, it's still going to be tangent. And now I will offset that line right here 2 millimeters, so it comes over like that. It creates an actual line, and now I'll do a little bit of trimming. Get rid of that part of the line, that part of the line, this part, this part. Also going to get rid of that, and it's going to destroy my slot, which I knew it would. And I'm going to get rid of that as well. Trim this out. I will trim that part out. Oop, I didn't mean to do that. Let's back off of that. I'll just Control Z. Back in the trim command now. So I want to get rid of this. Yes, that's going to destroy that one. And I'll get rid of that part as well. And this. And that. Leave that piece in. Okay, now a little more trimming. Got to get rid of that. And I've got to get rid of this. And I have to get rid of that. So all I'm doing here is to create a shape. I did lose one of my dimensions, but just to create a shape that I can mirror over. And put my smart dimension back here, bring that across like that. Now I have a small problem I just realized, which is that this is not a tangent relation yet. So I'm going to hold my control key down, pick both of those, that point, that line and that edge, make those tangent. I'm going to do the same with this and the arc, make those tangent. Do the same thing down here, hold the control key down, make those tangent, hold the control key down and make those tangent. Now I lost those tangencies when I trimmed my slot, so it might not have been the best way to do it, but it's going to work out. So now I'll go to Mirror Entities. I'll say take all those entities right there, mirror them about the center line that I put in here, comes across like that. One more time. Do that, mirror it about the center line right here, pick the green check. Now that is no longer necessary, and that is no longer necessary. Yeah. So now you can see I can take this and move it up and down, and it stays tangent to the outside edge. I can move this up and down, it stays tangent. Can't move anything back and forth, so now it's just a question of locating it. So I'll put a smart dimension that goes from the center line to here. That distance is 26, looking at the print. And then the overall distance from the top of this to the top of that is 30 millimeters. We'll put that in. Now it still says underdefined, and when that happens it's usually because you created something, in this case I did, that left behind the little point right there that's blue. I'm going to delete that and then start looking around for some other things that are underdefined, because it still is saying underdefined. Oh, there's another one right here, that little blue dot right there, which was created by the slot command. Slot command looked like a good idea when I started this. It might not have been the fastest way to do it, but now it's done and it is fully defined. So I come back over to features. I'm going to do an extruded boss, swing it around so you can see what it's doing here. I don't want to go blind. I want to go up to surface, and when I do, I'm going to pick that surface right there. Then I'm going to select direction 2, do the same thing, up to surface, but go in the other direction. Green checkbox, and it comes in and looks like that. The rest of this is pretty straightforward, just putting some holes in and a little bit of shape, but I'll show you what the purpose of this was, is to be able to go in and make a change to the dimension and have this part behave in the way that we expect it to behave. So that if I go down to this boss, right click on that sketch and edit it, and come in and say, I want to raise that up from 26 to 40, it should slide the whole thing into place. And when we select that green check and then come back out of the sketch, we shouldn't get any errors, and when it slides up, it should expand to stay tangent to the outside edges of those silhouettes. You can see that's exactly what happened. We would have cut this in half this way, then take a look at it from the right hand side. That part is always going to be tangent as it goes up and down on here. Clear this out. Likewise, if we go back to our original sketch, we make a change so that 140 is now 120, it should shorten up without any problem. And likewise, if we go back to that sketch and decide that this 48 needs to be 42, and maybe that 32 needs to be 34, that should still continue on without breaking, and you see that it does, and all the parts stay connected in the way that we want them to be connected. I'm going to wrap that one up and we'll make the video, but that's just an approach to how to both, actually really two things, to create a loft, which requires that you have two shapes and loft between them, but also so that you build into any part you're making your design intent. And SolidWorks uses the phrase design intent all the time, but clearly my intent here is to make sure that that little I-beam bridge always connects in exactly the way that it's shown here, whether we make it higher, lower, move it, or change the thickness or anything else. So I literally should be able to go and change any of these parameters and say, I don't really want that to be 4 millimeters anymore. I want that top to be 5 millimeters, say. I should be able to make that 5 millimeters, make the top bottom one 5 millimeters as well, come back out, and still have an I-beam that connects the parts, just like that. You know what, as long as we're right here, what do we have, 18 minutes? Let's put the fillet in there. This one could be a little tricky. That fillet is a fillet of 3 millimeters, and I'm going to try picking surfaces to put that in. I pick that surface, and it's waiting, and I think it's going to come in just a second, and it does. We're going to roll it up here, and I'll take this surface. That one comes in as well. I'm going to pick all these surfaces, including the one up under here. Take the top surface, roll it around to the other side, take that surface right there, and don't quite have everything. Pick that surface right here, and when we look around, it looks like it got the whole thing. Yeah, so pick the green checkbox, and you can see you've got a fillet that goes all the way around in one pass, by the way.